Some nights you just need to get out of the house. Not because you have somewhere to be. Not because anyone is waiting for you. Just because the four walls around you have started to feel like they are closing in. I know that feeling well. A few weeks ago, I gave into it. I got dressed. I went out. I told myself it would be fine. I was wrong. I had just gone through a breakup, 2.5 years. It was not dramatic. No screaming matches, no betrayal, no single moment where everything shattered. We had simply grown in different directions, slowly, quietly. And one day we looked at each other and both knew. That does not make it hurt any less. I had been keeping no contact, telling myself it was the healthiest thing for both of us. And I believe that. I still believe that. But belief does not stop the ache. The thing I missed most, more than I expected, was pool. That had been our thing. Dive bars with worn-down tables and dim lighting and a jukebox in the corner. Older crowds. No one trying to be seen. Just two people playing a game they both loved. He was exceptional. 1-rail banks, 2-rail banks, kick shots, combinations. On a good night he made it look effortless. I was no amateur either. Better than most people walking into a bar for the first time. We were always the youngest people there. We did not mind. A few weeks ago, on a random Wednesday night, the missing of it hit me harder than usual. None of my friends were free. It was a weeknight. I had no reason to go out. But sitting alone in my apartment with all of that quiet pressing down on me, I could not do it anymore. I got dressed and drove to one of our old bars. I told myself it was not about nostalgia. I just needed to move, needed to breathe, needed to be somewhere that was not my living room. The bar was exactly the same as I remembered. Dim lighting, worn stools, the same jukebox humming in the corner, the same smell of old wood and cheap beer. The familiarity wrapped around me like something warm, and then stung. Memories came in without invitation. The two of us leaning over the table, debating whether a shot was legal. His laugh when I scratched on the 8-ball. The way he would chalk his cue without looking at it, like second nature. I almost turned around and left right there. But I forced myself to stay. Sat at the bar, ordered a drink. Then another. Let the ambient noise of the room settle around me like a blanket. After a while, I drifted toward the pool tables. I picked up a cue and started chalking it without any real plan. Playing alone felt strange. But I did not know what else to do with my hands. Then a guy walked over, mid-20s, the only other person in the bar, anywhere near my age. He leaned against the edge of the table with the casual ease of someone who was comfortable taking up space. Asked if I wanted a game. I told him to rack them up. He racked the balls wrong. I noticed immediately, said nothing. We played anyway. He was decent, not polished. Not someone who had spent years at a table, but he could hold his own well enough to make the game interesting. I won every rack without trying to lose. He bought me drinks. We talked between shots. He was friendly enough, easy to be around. Not the sharpest conversation I had ever had, but I was not looking for a debate. I was looking for something to occupy my mind. And for a while, it worked. I was actually having a good time. I had stopped thinking about the breakup, stopped counting the days. Just played pool in a familiar bar on a Wednesday night and let myself exist without analyzing everything. Then the fourth game ended. He set his cue down and looked at me. Asked if I wanted to go back to his place. I was caught off guard. Not completely surprised. I am not naive, but caught off guard enough that I fumbled my response. I said no, tried to keep it light. Said something about a second date. I was not trying to be cruel. I just was not ready for that, not that night. Not with someone I had just met over 4 games of pool. And then something changed in his face. The smile disappeared. The easy, relaxed posture tightened. His eyes went flat in a way that made my stomach drop before my brain had time to catch up. He said, "Are you serious?" Then his hand closed around my wrist. I have never been in a situation like that before. I did not scream. I did not fight. I did not do any of the things you tell yourself you will do when you imagine a moment like that. I just froze. He grabbed my purse. We were in a public place surrounded by other people, and I could not make a single sound. Luckily, 2 older men at the bar noticed. They came over without hesitation. One of them told him to let me go. The guy stared at me for a long moment, said something under his breath, threw my purse back onto the table, and walked out of the bar. I thanked those two men more times than I could count. I do not know what would have happened if they had not been there. I called an Uber, got in, closed my eyes, and somewhere between the bar and home, exhaustion pulled me under, and I fell asleep. The driver woke me gently when we arrived. I thanked him, got out, started walking toward my front door. The street was quiet, the neighborhood still. Just me and the sound of my own footsteps on the pavement. I reached into my bag for my keys and pulled out my phone to check it at the same time. There was a notification on the screen. AirTag found moving with you. I stopped walking. Read it again. My hands began shaking before I had fully processed what I was looking at. I opened my purse and went through it slowly, methodically, pushing past every familiar object, my wallet, my lip balm, my keys, until my fingers touched something that did not belong. Small, smooth, round. I pulled it out. An AirTag. Someone had placed it in my bag at the bar. While I was not looking. While I was laughing and playing pool and telling myself I was fine. Someone had slipped a tracking device into my purse. The panic that hit me then was different from anything I had felt at the bar. At the bar there had been other people, witnesses, men who stepped in. Standing on that sidewalk alone in the dark, holding that small white disc in my shaking hand, I understood what it meant. He knew which Uber I had gotten into. He had watched the route, he had followed it. He now knew exactly where I lived. I threw the AirTag onto the pavement and stomped on it until it was nothing. Then I grabbed my purse and ran. Around the side of the house, through the back door, lock turned, chain on. I stood in my kitchen with my back against the wall and my hand pressed over my mouth, trying to breathe, trying to think. Eventually I made it upstairs. I told myself I just needed to calm down, that he had no way of knowing which exact house, that the neighborhood was full of houses and he could not narrow it down. I stood at the edge of my bedroom window and looked out at the street below, quiet, still, empty, and then headlights. A car came slowly down the road, old, beat up. A Lincoln, the kind that has seen 20 years of road and never been looked after. It passed. I exhaled. Then it came back, slower. The driver's head turned as it passed my house, scanning the numbers, looking at the windows, moving with the deliberate pace of someone searching for something specific. It came back a third time. A fourth, each pass slower than the last. On the fifth pass, the driver's window was rolled halfway down. On the sixth, a hand appeared outside the window, holding something. Something that caught the light from the street lamp as the car went past. A knife. Then the car stopped, right in the middle of the road, directly across from my house. Engine still running. Just stop. I dropped below the window frame and pressed myself flat against the wall. I did not move. I did not breathe. I could not see the street from where I was. I could only wait. I do not know how long I stayed there. It felt like hours. When I finally found the courage to raise my head and look, the car was gone. The street was empty, still, silent, like nothing had happened at all. The next morning I told my parents everything. My father was angry that I had not called the police while it was happening. I understood why he was angry. I did not have a good answer for him. I was too scared to think. Too frozen to act. Too overwhelmed to do anything except survive the moment I was in. He called a contact of his, police chief he knew personally, without a license plate number, without clearer evidence, without something concrete to work from. There was nothing they could do. I did not leave the house for days. I checked the locks before bed. I checked the windows. I checked the street. Every car that drove past slowly made my chest tighten. Every unfamiliar sound outside pulled me to the window. I have not been back to that bar. I have not played pool since. The thing that was supposed to help me heal from one loss became something I am now afraid of. I have not seen the Lincoln since that night. I have not received another notification. I have not found anything else in my bag. But here is the thing about that kind of fear. It does not disappear just because the danger seems to have passed. It sits with you. In the pause before you open the front door. In the moment you walk to your car alone at night. In the way you scan every face that turns in your direction a second too long. It changes the way you move through the world. And I still do not know whether the nightmare is really over. She went out to feel less alone. She sat at a familiar bar in a familiar city and played a game she had always loved. She let herself breathe for the first time in weeks. And in the space of one evening, a wrist grabbed, a purse stolen. A tracking device slipped quietly into a bag by someone who had already decided she was a target. She made it home. She was one of the lucky ones. The AirTag is broken. The car has not come back. But somewhere out there, the man who bought her drinks and then grabbed her wrist, who slipped that tracker into her bag and followed the signal home, who drove past her house 6 times with a knife in his hand, is still out there. Pay attention to the people who change when they do not get what they want. Pay attention to the hands that are not where you can see them. Check your bag. And trust the feeling when something shifts in someone's eyes. Because sometimes the most dangerous moment of the night is the one that starts with someone just asking if you want to play a game. If that story made you check what is in your bag right now, good. This is a real account from a real person. A normal Wednesday night, a familiar bar, a game of pool, and a man who decided that a rejection meant he had the right to follow her home. Stories like this one need to be told. Not for the horror of it, but because knowing what happened to someone else might change what happens to you. If this story stayed with you, hit the like button right now. It takes 1 second. And it means more stories like this one keep getting told. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss a new upload. Every week, real accounts, real moments, real people who went through something they never saw coming. The kind of stories that stay with you, the kind that matter. And in the comments below, I want to hear from you. What was the moment in this story that hit hardest? Was it the AirTag notification, standing alone on the sidewalk, realizing what it meant? Was it the car driving past the house again and again, slower each time? Was it the knife? Or was it the fact that even now, she still does not know if it is truly over? Tell me below. I read every single comment. And if something like this has happened to you, a moment where someone changed, where a normal night became something else, where you made it home and did not know how, share it, because your story matters. And someone out there needs to hear it. Check your bag before you go to sleep tonight. Trust your instincts. And remember, the AirTag notification exists for a reason. Turn it on. Keep it on. Stay safe.